Welcome to the Kevin Dunn Show. We are so excited that you've taken the time out to join us. Very, very special guest. We have Sergeant Raines here today. And I met Sergeant Raines at a youth event. He was speaking to the youth and he has a message that says, just do it. When we come back from the commercial break, we're going to find out what that message is from Sergeant Raines.
The Kevin Dunn Show, brought to you in part by Rogers Barbecue, LaGrange, Georgia. Rogers Barbecue in LaGrange has been locally owned and operated since 1945. They have daily lunch specials for only $6.62, and that includes your drink and dessert. Tuesday nights from 5 to close is all-you-can-eat ribs. Thursday, Rogers has all-you-can-eat catfish, which, along with their stew, is famous throughout the region, and they proudly serve only U.S. farm-raised catfish. Dine in or use their convenient drive-thru, Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. at 117 New Franklin Road in LaGrange. Come join the crowd at Rogers Barbecue.
Welcome back to the Kevin Dunn Show. Our special guest is Sergeant Maurice Raines. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you today?
So tell us about, you have this uniform on, you're a sergeant and you're not in the Army. Explain to us, what is your job title?
I'm Sergeant First Class Maurice Raines. I'm the post commander with the State Patrol here in LaGrange, Georgia.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
Been with the patrol 22 years.
22 years.
Right.
Man, you look barely a couple of years over 22.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us, as someone in law enforcement, what is the greatest asset you have to offer to mankind?
Well, first of all, law enforcement is a servanthood. In other words, you're serving your fellow man. You're helping people in their time of need. You never know when a crisis will come, and it's unique because every experience is totally different. Every situation is totally different. So to me, it's that you're wanting to help people in their time of need.
Just wanting to help people.
Right.
Now, 22 years, how did you get started into law enforcement?
Well, basically, I had no idea that I would be in law enforcement. My grandmother worked for the sheriff. She asked me about law enforcement. Some other things that I thought I would be doing didn't pan out, and I decided to join law enforcement, and then I decided if I'm going to be in law enforcement, I want to be the elite group, and that was becoming Georgia State Trooper.
Now, when you say commander in post, are you out in the field as well, or you just strictly?
I'm the administrator here.
Administrator.
And if my officers do need assistance, whether it be wrecks are backed up or traffic enforcement, I can go out and I will assist them.
do you like, what you like better?
Well, I've been in the field for a while, and now I'm at the pinnacle of my career. So the administration is good because you help make sure your officers have the tools they need to do their job. So it's very exciting to know that I've helped them in some kind of way to be able to do their job.
That's good. That's good. Now, Sergeant Raines, you know we have some challenges in our society today as it relates to law enforcement and civilians. Can you name some do's and don'ts when someone, civilian, is approached by law enforcement? Can you just break down some do's and don'ts?
Oh, absolutely. The first thing to do is do what you're told. The biggest problem that I see in not only law enforcement but in society is most people don't want to do what they're told. Law enforcement is justice, wisdom, and moderation. Most officers are sworn law enforcement officers. In other words, they took an oath that they would enforce the laws of the state they're in and in this country, which means that if you're in a position of authority to enforce the law, whatever you're told, you need to do it. Whether it's right or wrong or indifferent, whatever you're told to do, do it.
Now, people would, I won't say they could argue with you, but they would probably say, well, Sergeant Raines, I'm right though.
Right.
So why should I have to do what's right when I'm already doing what's right?
Okay, first of all, understand a lot of times things happen for a reason. And in it, if you're right, right's going to win out. If that officer is wrong, it will be shown that he was wrong. And if he was wrong, he or she will be dealt with. Common thing that happens on a traffic stop. You get stopped. what did you stop me for? Every law enforcement officer has got to tell you what they stopped you for. And whatever the infraction is, he or she will tell you what they're going to do about the infraction that you did to break the law, and you move accordingly. You're not going to have court on the side of the road. That happens at the courthouse.
Okay.
In other words, a citation is only an accusation. That law enforcement officer has the authority to accuse you, but not say you're innocent or guilty. The court will decide whether you're innocent or guilty. And a lot of people get hung up on, well, I didn't do that, but you got a right to be heard, and you can have that in court.
Now, how does this make you feel? As I talked about earlier, there is a common ground that needs to be between law enforcement and civilians. When you hear people scrutinizing your fellow brethren with the negative publicity or whatnot, how does that make you feel?
Well, first of all, there's good and bad in everything. There are some bad officers in law enforcement, just like in every other profession. You got good doctors and you got bad doctors.
All right. You
got good lawyers, you got bad lawyers. But in it, the attitude is everybody's the same, and that's not true. The gap is ignorance on both sides.
Wow.
The ignorance is the law enforcement officer may not know what's going on, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. The citizen is ignorant to what the law is and what you can do and what you can't do. So at the end of the day, if you feel that you're right and I feel that I'm right, there ain't nothing left for us to do but argue.
Okay.
That's just where we are.
Wow. So, now do you guys actually talk about this when you're? I know you're busy working, but do you get a chance to interact with some of the people that you currently work with to just talk about the situations that are going on?
I tell my staff every month. I meet with my staff monthly to let them know that America is depressed. It is depressing to get a ticket, but it doesn't excuse breaking the law. You have to enforce the law. But the most important thing that I instill in them, and they do their best and due diligence in doing it, is show compassion when you can.
Right.
Laws have to be obeyed. People have to do what they're told. And at the end of the day, where you can show compassion, they will. Not saying that you're not going to get a ticket, not saying that you're not going to get a warning, but if they can show compassion, they will. But most people, the way they interact with law enforcement costs them more because of how they react.
Exactly.
In other words, like I said, nobody wants to get a ticket, but you can't break the law.
You can't break the law either.
Right.
And that's why you guys are here.
Right.
Now, I heard you speak at a youth football camp, and this is the reason why I have you here today. You spoke to, I don't know, the ages 7 to 14, I don't know. But your message to those kids, you said Nike has a slogan that says, just do it.
Right.
So your message to the kids was just do it.
Right.
What is that message? And tell our viewing audience what you mean when you are saying to kids, civilians, everybody. And you touched on it briefly, but I want you to go more in depth. Well, what does that mean, just do it?
Well, first of all, kids like Nike apparel. Everybody wants to wear Nike. Everybody wants to wear the brand. That slogan is a very powerful slogan, just do it. As a kid, if a kid is not doing what their parents tell them to do, then there's going to be consequences. If the kid goes to school and don't do what they're told at school, there's going to be consequences. If they get in society and they don't do what they're told, law enforcement, there's going to be consequences. So what I've learned through my career and seeing interaction with people in general, everybody's personality is different, everybody's attitude is different, but everybody can obey. Everybody can make up their mind to obey. If a school kid is struggling in school, my question is, are they being obedient in school?
Okay.
If they're being disobedient in school, my question is, are they being disobedient at home? If they're not going to do what needs to be done at home, if they're not going to need to do what needs to be done at school, then they're not going to do what needs to be done in society, and there are going to be some serious consequences in society. So my attitude is, if you just do it, do what you're told, good things will happen.
Why do so many people refuse to just do it? And I know parents play a big role in that, the way they're raising their kids at home. But even you have parents, adults, who don't want to obey. Why do people refuse to just do it?
Okay, well, in looking at, let's just say the home has got chaos. That kid can make up their mind to just do it in school. Because they got teachers at school that's trying to teach them the things, the tools that they need to make it in this life. So just because the home's broken doesn't mean you can't go to school and just do it. There's somebody in that school system that will help you change that situation that you got at home. But your attitude's got to be, I just got to do it.
Wow. Now, if parents can't be obedient, where else can the children learn obedience from? I know you said school or whatnot, churches that may be clear, but what are some other areas that can speak to the children to let them know about obedience?
Motivation comes from within. You have to motivate yourself to have self-discipline. A small kid today, 2-3 years old, you can tell, do not touch that stove because it's hot.
Right.
Okay? Until they make up their mind and touch that stove, then once they touch that stove, they're going to make up in their mind, that thing's hot. So you know what? I'm not going to touch it again. And guess what? They just decided to do it.
They just decided to do it.
They didn't take heed to the warning, but in touching it, realization come in that they just got to do it.
Now, Sergeant Raines, tell us a little bit, and I know I'm shifting, and we'll come back, but I think you made a comment at the camp when you were talking with the kids about your upbringing, as far as your mom and dad and all of that. Elaborate on that for us.
I came up with a single parent. My dad never signed my birth certificate. I did have a stepdad that did step in a role and play a role, but what I learned from my mother is that you can do anything you want to do if you apply yourself. The attitude in school's got to be, you may not be the smartest kid in the world, but you can have good conduct. And in having good conduct, that means 12 years of school means there's 12 years of references that can say good things about you.
Wow.
And so what happens is, if I had a 69 and needed a 70 to pass that class, my conduct will probably influence that teacher to help me figure out a way to get that point made to pass that class. But if I've been a turd in class and I'm at a 69, then chances are that teacher's not going to want to help me. But what kids fail to realize in school is those teachers can talk about how you attended school, what kind of conduct you had in school, and say great things about you, about school, versus, I don't know, if it was me, I wouldn't fool with that kid. So the bottom line is, you know, it's a vehicle to handle your destiny in life. And that's just how I look at it.
So looking at you're a sharp individual. He's in politics. We'll talk about that another time. And you come from a single parent home, and you're sharp, you're clean cut, and you made some strides in life that people, you and your family, your wife can be proud of. So you saying there's still hope for kids out there who have a single mom home?
Absolutely. There is an excuse if you want to make an excuse for being in a single parent home, if you want to make that excuse. But the bottom line is this: you have to motivate yourself. You have to set goals for yourself. I feel that I could be president of the United States today. May not ever get there, but that's a goal that that I want to pursue, I can. You know, but the attitude has got to be, you have to want to motivate yourself. We can make excuses, but you got to want to motivate yourself.
Can you motivate yourself with all of the games and a lot of the things the youth do, as far as the PlayStations and the social media? And
well, that's where the problem came in. Parents got away from parenting, and parents began to pacify. We gave things instead of giving time to teach about things.
Wow, that's awesome. And Sergeant Raines, we're going to pause and take a quick commercial break. And when we come back from the next commercial break, we're going to be asking Sergeant Raines, at what age does he think a male, female should actually be taught obedience? I know he said 2 years old, but we're going to go more in depth with that. More Sergeant Raines when we come back on the Kevin Dunn Show.
Rogers Barbecue in LaGrange has been locally owned and operated since 1945. They have daily lunch specials for only $6.62, and that includes your drink and dessert. Tuesday nights from 5 to close is all-you-can-eat ribs. Thursday, Rogers has all-you-can-eat catfish, which, along with their stew, is famous throughout the region, and they proudly serve only U.S. farm-raised catfish. Dine in or use their convenient drive-thru, Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. at 117 New Franklin Road in LaGrange. Come join the crowd at Rogers Barbecue.
Welcome back to the Kevin Dunn Show. If you're just joining us, we're with Sergeant Maurice Raines, and wow, this guy is sharing a lot of great information with us. The next question I would like to ask you, at what age, just for people who don't know, at what age should a parent be teaching a male or female about obedience?
Well, I'd say age 2 or greater. I mean, at even a terrible 2. A terrible 2, you can tell, don't do this, and they'll smile at you. You got to mean what you say. You got to tell them, no, you're not going to do this. And if not, it becomes accepted behavior. And when it becomes accepted behavior, it's the norm. And when it becomes the norm, it becomes a problem. And so from that point on, it can't be, I'm going to do it at 2, and then I'm going to quit and pick it back up at 6, and then I'm going to pick it back up at 12. No, obedience is taught every day. You know, even though I've left home, my mother still can tell me some stuff.
Exactly. Same here. We get ready to be 48, and Dad still have to listen. Now, we live in the day and time now where teachers, preachers, law enforcement, respected positions are not respected anymore. Where do you think that came in? Well, we'll leave out the teachers and the preachers, but as far as law enforcement, where did this lack of respect come from, and when do you think it actually started? I know it's always been there, but it's real prevalent now in our society.
The disconnect is people not knowing each other. Used to have community policing, and law enforcement today has had to cut back. Equipment has been cut back. Salaries are terrible. And people are serving. Population has grown. The number of law enforcement officers have decreased. They continue to decrease. So the community policing is gone. The interaction with police is gone. There's no community involvement. In other words, the only time police show up is when there's a problem, instead of being a part of the community. And so the disconnect has happened over, I'd say in the 90s is when it actually picked up. Yeah.
Now, Sergeant Raines, how do we get it back? How do we get it back?
Well, what has to happen is there has to be respect both ways. The law enforcement has to respect the community, and the community has to respect law enforcement. And the only way you bridge that gap is talk. You got to have dialogue. You know, that police officer's coming down the street, don't always assume he's coming down the street to arrest somebody. He's just coming down the street because he want to make sure there ain't no crime going on. Ain't nothing wrong with waving, ain't nothing wrong with stopping him and saying, hey, how you doing? Because at the end of the day, he or she is a public servant. They are there to serve the public. If your car broke down on the side of the road and a police officer drove by, it would make you feel like he didn't care, and vice versa. You know, you had an opportunity to engage law enforcement about something that they're working on, and you chose not to do it. So it's a disconnect between the citizen and law enforcement, and the attitude is citizens see it as policing me because I've done something wrong, and a police officer sees it that the community don't want me around. So at the end of the day, that's your disconnect.
Wow. Now, within the last year, of course, and we'll go in a little detail with this, with all of the publicity that law enforcement and civilians are actually getting across the country, can you say that, and we have about 4 or 5 of them right off the bat where people have lost their lives, you know, with law enforcement. Does those situations parallel each other, or do you think all situations are different?
All situations are different, but one thing is certain. The U.S. Supreme Court in 1989, Graham versus Connor, gave the specifics of use of deadly force. A law enforcement officer the courts have said that in 2020 hindsight, in other words, a law enforcement officer doesn't have all the facts, but yet he's asked to make a split-second decision. The Supreme Court has said that a reasonable officer in fear for his life or someone else's life or property has the right to use deadly force. I said that to say this. If you're a bigger man and I'm a smaller man, and yet I have no other resources other than I've talked to you, you fail to comply, going back to disobedience, it becomes hands-on. I can't put my hands on you because you're a bigger man, okay? Because at the end of the day, a fight ain't gonna work because you're a bigger man. At the end of the day, if all I have left is my firearm and I'm in fear of my life, as long as I can articulate that yes, a reasonable person in the same situation will react the same way, and I'm justified in using deadly force. And speaking of deadly force, no law enforcement officer is ever trained to shoot to injure. Law enforcement officers are trained to shoot to kill, because if you could shoot to injure, that means you could have done something else. And so understand that each shot from a law enforcement officer is expected to be center mass, which is the chest, center mass, which is the head. And as I hate to say that's the way it is, but that's how you train, is to shoot to kill.
And that was my next question, because I always wondered, well, why, when it appears that the officer has the upper hand because they have a weapon, but you're saying that's not the case.
No.
So I'm just wondering, why you just can't shoot him in the leg, shoot him in the foot?
We're not trained that way.
You're not trained that way.
Anytime you're in a hostile situation, you will always revert back to your training. And your training is to shoot to kill. And if you're going to shoot, then you feel that your life is in danger. In other words, that person could take your life just as well as you could take theirs. That's the attitude. And going back to what the Supreme Court has said, a reasonable person in the same situation would react the same way. And the Supreme Court has ruled that it's justified. And looking at a few of the cases that we do know made national news, you had the Zimmerman case. We don't know all the facts. Never will know all the facts. Only somebody knows all the facts are those two. But at the end of the day, based on what the Supreme Court says, Zimmerman did not violate any civil rights. When you look at the Missouri case, big guy, big kid, we fail to look at the fact there was a felony in progress, yet people say that he was unarmed and he shot and killed. Well, the Justice Department looked into it, and the Supreme Court ruling says there's no violation of civil rights. So at the end of the day, it's ignorance of what the law is, and nothing against media, but it's painted a certain way because it's news. But at the end of the day, if people would take the time to read Graham versus Connor in the 1989 ruling of the Supreme Court, they will understand the use of deadly force.
If someone approached you off the street and wanted to argue that point with you that you just made, even though it is the law, do you really get involved with that? Or are you, how do you
understand this? I feel, and again, there are bad officers.
Right.
Understand that there are some officers, and they will eventually be caught. They will eventually get caught. But at the end of the day, most officers are good officers. At the end of the day, I truly believe the majority of law enforcement has no desire to take someone else's life. Okay, they have no desire to do that. And not only that, they got to live with their conscience that they did take somebody else's life.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, understand that nobody's just trigger happy to say, hey, I want to kill somebody today. No, the officer attitude is, my goal every day is to go home to my family, and whatever it costs for me to get home to my family, that's what I'm going to do.
In those situations when a confrontation is taking place, are you guys taught to somewhat control your emotions or your adrenaline?
You have to. You have to. An example, I'm going to use you as an example. You and I about the same body frame. Stop you and I tell you you're under arrest. I ain't going to jail. Yes, you are going to jail. You're going to jail if I have to get the National Guard to take you to jail. You're going to jail. Okay, but you've told me that you're not going. So the verbal communication with us is done. There's nothing left but hands-on. That means that I have to put my hands on you. Okay? At that point, how is that going to turn out? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I know that I know what I can do to try to get you to comply. But how is that going to turn out? I don't know. But at some point in the confrontation that you and I are having, if I fear for my life, I'm justified.
You're justified. And a lot of people do not.
They have no understanding of that. No understanding of that.
Wow. You also made a statement, and I could definitely testify with what you're saying, that when we, grew up back in the day, the teacher was always right. And that's what your parents instilled in you. That's what my parents instilled in you, and in me. Can we say that's the case now?
No, what we have today is my attitude. Well, what I was told was the teacher is always right. And if she's going to say, or he or she's going to say anything about you, let it be good. And so if that's the attitude, there is no disobedience. And that teacher going to say something good about me because I don't want mama to get on me for not doing what was said for me to do in school. Teacher is not going to just make up stuff. If you're a problem, the problem going to show up. And not only does the teacher know, but other peers in the class know as well. So my attitude is just do what you're told to do, and we don't have to worry about it.
Some kids might be watching. Sergeant Raines, you don't understand how hard it is for me and what I'm going through in society. You seem kind of harsh with your comments, even though you're telling the truth and what you believe in. What would you say to them?
Are you making excuses? Or are you going to tough it out and be motivated to do what you need to do to make it? People can make excuses all day. But do you have the will and the grit and the grind to say, no matter what, I'm going to see it through? I mean, imagine, what if Michael Jordan had listened to his coach and said, you're not good enough to play?
Wow.
What if he had listened to that? What if when Tiger Woods' kids was teaching him how to hit a golf ball, he decided that he didn't want to listen? What if, I mean, the list goes on and on, that there are people that have made something out of themselves because they chose to not give up. So just because it doesn't look like it'll work out, you still can have motivation within yourself that it will work out.
And you shared with me when we were talking earlier that you were told that you would not make it in law enforcement.
That's correct. I was told that you don't have a future here. And the grit and the motivation that I had was, not only am I going to make it, I'm going to wear the best of the best. And I'm going to move up with the best of the best. Well, I think it speaks for itself today.
Exactly. Sergeant Raines, name at least, wow, and we've talked about a lot of them, but if you could just name three, give us three things that could improve relationships in our community. We'll just look at our community.
Okay.
What can improve relationships between law enforcement and civilians?
First of all, everybody has to realize that nobody should have an axe to grind. Everybody should have the attitude that we're going to make this work. Law enforcement has to respect the culture of people. You know, where everybody's got a different culture. Everybody's got it. There's a segment of town that everybody says, well, I don't want to go to that segment of town because that's the way they are. And then you got those that live in the best of communities. Well, I don't want to have anything to do with them. At the end of the day, law enforcement attitude has to be, we're all the same. I don't care whether you got money, I don't care whether you're rich, I don't care whether you're poor, you're all the same. The attitude from citizens have to be, I'm going to support law enforcement. At the end of the day, I don't want you to think about this. Okay. If I came to your house on a domestic and you cuss me out and I leave and you call me tomorrow, do you know I got to come back tomorrow? Wow. Even though you cussed me out the day before, I got to come back tomorrow. You know why? Because you called 911. It is my job to come and protect you. It is my job to come and support you. And also understand that he or she in law enforcement are human. They have issues too.
Okay.
They have problems too. So put on their clothes of going in an environment that is unsafe. You don't know what your surroundings are. You don't know what you're going to face when you get there. So the attitude has to be, and people have to understand, the number one problem with the public and law enforcement is this. Law enforcement is trained to not trust before we trust.
Okay, all right. Say that one more time.
People have to understand law enforcement is trained not to trust before we trust. Because at the end of the day, that's the only way you can be safe. Think about it. If I stopped you today and I saw you go in your glove box, don't you think I'm going to say, hey, what you doing?
Right. Exactly.
You're innocent, but I'm thinking, what are you doing?
Wow. Well, Sergeant Raines, our time is about up. Appreciate you coming to be a guest on the show.
Glad to be here.
Some very, very valuable information. I know you've been blessed, and I know you've been educated and informed, and hopefully inspired by Sergeant Raines' presence here today. And remember, if there's a topic that you would like to see discussed on The Kevin Dunn Show, please email us at thekevindunshow@wjcntv.com. We thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day.